Hey,
Nothing.
welcome to Defen.
Oh yeah.
episode number 91, and we're on a roll actually. So this is probably the people who are listening to this might listen to this like a week apart or a month apart, I don't know. But we just recorded yesterday one episode, and today this is like a climate change level earthquake in Defen scheduling, because we usually record like one episode every, I don't know, it's a cosmic event, It
It's
just
like the hockey
it just
stick.
happens
Actually,
once in.
Yeah, but I feel like the normal situation is more like climate change. It's like long drawn out. When's the next one
Yeah.
going to come? Nothing ever happens. It's like more like that. And this is more like more like a heat storm or something.
Exactly, yeah.
It's like
solar
the
storm.
2020 of Defen. All the shit just happened
Exactly.
at once. Boom. Surprise, motherfucker.
Yeah,
Actually,
exactly.
isn't this like the most Defen we've ever had? Like, I don't think we've ever done two in a weekend.
Would you say it's
No, that's what I'm saying.
deafening?
Oh.
Ooh.
Yeah, definitely.
right on the brand.
Just cut my mic anytime you want. It's fine.
No. I mean, if anybody's mic should be cut, it'll be probably mine and
I was going to say
Ray's.
Ray. Yeah.
Oh, thanks, guys. It's a fucking Emacs war already, is it?
Of course, you had your fun in the previous episode, so
Oh, you had a non-Emacs person on the podcast?
yeah, I think this
Gross.
is. I know, man. I mean, it's just we're losing our, it's
The
becoming
center will
shittier
not
and
hold,
shittier. Yeah, it's like the Game of Thrones season 8 or something. It's like everything is shit now. Like, anyway.
Well, maybe we can argue
Anywho.
about which Emacs we use, like the People's Liberation Front of Judea or whatever. I'm Doom all the way.
Which
Oh my God.
flavor of Emacs?
Do more space. Yeah.
That's gotta
Yeah,
be
yeah.
Doom. Yeah.
And then there is always going to be some tiny voice like, I use default Emacs.
Yeah,
I'm
vanilla
way better than
Emacs.
you people.
This
Yeah.
Boshidar, that guy. It's like Prelude.
Honestly, though,
Yeah,
we've
yeah.
got some people at work, not to throw them under the bus. I don't think they listen to the program. But,
Name the
Yeah,
names.
Yeah, exactly. First, last names, and Twitter handles, please. Thanks.
okay, I'll put them in the
And,
show notes, okay?
And then once the episode releases, and then raise LinkedIn updates like looking for a job now.
Yeah. Well, as the kids say, let me cook. It's like it's going to start off bad but end good. But yeah, these people they use Vim or they use Emacs or VS Code. All bad things, obviously, as far as I'm concerned. But they use them. But they use them in the raw. They use them like there's no bindings. They're not bound to any REPL. Nothing is happening. There's no even key
That's
bindings.
fucking weird.
Not
Why
even
would
completion.
you?
Not even code completion or anything. Yeah. But it
Then why
turns
don't you
out,
just use paper?
I know, but it turns out. But
Yeah.
two of these people. I mean, I'm not going to say all of the people because some of the people aren't that great. But some of the people.
we
two
are
of the
narrowing
people-
it down. Okay.
yeah, two of the people in that group, right, are like the best Clojurians in the company,
Yeah.
without a doubt. I mean,
Because
these guys
they
put
use
awesome
Emacs, you
code,
mean?
No, they use
Yeah.
Vim, but they use it with no affordances, no bindings, no accoutrements, nothing.
The
And I
REPL
find
is
it unbelievable.
the REPL is just
If only
triangles.
the. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, they don't use the REPL. Yeah. It's
Yeah,
like
you don't
Java
need to just
programmers or
write the
C
code and
programmers,
move
they just spit out code and run a test. It's like, what is going on here?
It's test-driven development. It's a new thing, Ray. You ought to try it out. It's amazing.
I mean, if only the usage of editor gave away the quality of your software programs, it'll be so much easier. And then all the job interviews are like, "Can you please open your editor? Get the fuck out."
Do you have any questions for me?
Exactly.
Isn't that your interview technique anyway, VJ? It's like,
Yeah, that's pretty much it. That's pretty much it. Hey, can you share the screen? No, you don't need to write the code. Just open your editor.
Yeah.
Your editor.
yeah.
That's it.
Show me the
I'm
config.
gonna-
Show me the config.
Exactly.
Now, show me the config.
Actually, if somebody shares their screen and Emacs is not already running as the window manager, nope, they're done.
No, you're done.
Okay.
Thanks for your time.
Anyway.
but do you find this, because you work in a Clojure shop, Josh? Do you find that like there are some people that just don't have used sort of like a very bare bones tool set?
But by the way, I mean, for the people who are listening, our today's guest is Josh.
Mr. Glover, man.
Maybe it's a good idea to tell people who you're listening.
Glover.
Do you want to do that for me, or should I do it myself?
Please go ahead. I mean, we don't want to discourage people from tooting their own.
Come on, Josh, toot up.
All right.
No more tweeting, only tooting.
2 drink minimum. Which social media platform toots? There is one, right?
It's a Mastodon.
Mastodon.
Yeah.
I've
been trying out the Blue Sky so people skeet, which is terrible. Like I can't say that with a straight face.
I thought the people on Mastodon would normally mastodate, but apparently they don't.
Okay. So anyway, I'm Josh, and I do work at a Clojure shop, but I'm not going to disclose which one because my
oh my god,
after the episode there are going to be 2 people who are putting their LinkedIn.
Yeah, don't worry, nobody there listens to this shit, so it's fine.
I mean, nobody there. I mean, you don't need to qualify it as there. Like, nobody listens to this shit. Why are you qualifying it with some? You don't need to locate.
I do work with some vegans, though, and they probably listen because this is the world's foremost vegan Clojure podcast, I believe.
Vegetarian,
That's true.
Actually. Vegetarian.
Only vegetarian.
Yeah, because I'm not vegan. So
okay.
And I was a vegetarian at the beginning as well, so it's kind of like I've changed.
We started,
not the podcast. So
I thought VJ had graduated. That's the thing. Okay, so you're still only a vegetarian. That's cool.
Yeah.
The lowest common denominator.
Yeah.
This is that's how we're operating more.
And you can't complain because I didn't actually switch to vegetarianism. Just all my existence I've been vegetarian. So there goes my. I mean, I've saved more fucking carbon than every other people can imagine. So I'm done.
Yeah.
Nice.
So that's why I drive a diesel car to compensate that one. So that's okay. Sorry. Anyway,
take a helicopter
please, go ahead.
Everywhere,
No, really, really old fuel inefficient Cessna. Anyway.
Yeah.
Sorry, Josh.
So where were we, Josh? Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know what more do you need to know. So I'm in Stockholm. I will not disclose exactly where because
undisclosed location
in Stockholm.
In Stockholm, yeah, near some woods.
Yeah. And you've been doing Clojure for forever now, right?
Yeah. I think. So I bought the first Clojure book, I guess, back in 2008, and yeah. So that I did Lisp in university. I think it was Common Lisp, and I had the correct reaction, which is what the fuck is this, and why would anybody want to write this shit? So
I think it should be more like hey, I'm Josh, and I work at a Clojure company, and record scratch, and then you might be wondering how I ended up in this place, and then we go back to the Common Lisp.
But I started playing with Scheme a few years after university when I was reading some blog posts by someone who I thought was smarter than me. I've since discovered that person is way worse than me. But I was impressed, and I was like, oh, this whole Lisp thing is cool. Let me find a Lisp. Oh, there's Scheme. And then, compared to Common Lisp, Scheme is amazing because there's, so little of it.
Yeah, yeah.
So like I messed around with it a little bit, but it's like, okay, I'm never going to get to write this at work because I was I was working for some big e-commerce company at the time. I will not disclose which. But then, yeah, the Clojure book came out and it was like Lisp on the JVM. And I was like, oh, I use the JVM at work and this is Lisp and that would be cool. So that's kind of how I got into it. But I didn't start using it like for anything professionally until maybe 2012 or something. But yeah, since then I've been like Clojuring pretty much nonstop. Until 3 years ago, I became a manager, so I don't.
Oh God! I think VJ is a manager as well. I mean,
oh God!
Well, I've been manager all my life, and by the way, interestingly, so let me tell you my managerial, level. Because there is some recruiter contacted me these days and then said, hey, there is a CTO position open. Would you be interested? I'm like, 3 days, so you need to go to the office. Fuck it, no. And I don't know, they're a really nice company. They're doing awesome shit. And, for the medical healthcare thingy. I said, sure, why not? So I go through like series of interviews with them. And then I get a feedback saying, well, you're too technical to be a CTO. So no.
What?
I'm like, that's interesting.
So
So
it's like chief
me being
technology
manager
officer now, isn't it? Not chief. It's like technology. It's more like marketing, like or something.
Yeah,
it's
I think so. I think they're looking more like a exactly. I mean, they're like, okay, how much do you want to be hands-on? I'm like, the fuck would you mean? Like, I have full screen Emacs and I'm going to be working in. What else do you expect from me?
We're talking through Emacs right now. Yeah,
exactly. I'm using Emacs Speak as we speak, but then so that's my managerial level. So I mean, I do manage people, but it's not managing, but it's more having fun with a bunch of people, and then complaining about their code and telling them how shitty my code is, and that's the fun part. So.
Can't wait to work for you, VJ. Where do I apply?
But I think you are more like a Coca-Cola manager, aren't you, Josh? The real thing. Yeah.
Me? Well, I don't know. Like, I don't write code. That's the kind of manager I am, So I just manage.
Thanks a lot for joining this podcast.
I just barely manage, though. Just about manage.
So it's not manager, it's barely manager.
Barely manager, yes. That's my actual title at work. That's I hope to be promoted to senior barely manager pretty soon.
But like the kids these days, they say bear for meaning like a lot or very, right. So bear management is like
bear management.
It's like a lot of management.
Okay. It's like, I think that's the advantage of having a younger generation at your home, I guess. I have no clue that it has moved. The only thing I noticed these days, like Riz means charisma.
Yeah.
That's what that's what I read on the internet now. I'm like, fuck, I'm getting old.
Well, that's not charisma as such. It's more like chat up. It's like if you've got the Riz, you're kind of like a flirtatious, If you've got if you can. It's like I can tell you a little joke actually that Christ, when he was reborn, because he's coming again, he was reborn, and he went off. He went off and he might cut this bit, but he went off and he joined Love Island. Okay, he is risen.
Whoa. This is our last episode. Congratulations, Josh. I mean, you're part of the history in the making now.
Amazing.
You can say, remember the fall of Defen? I was there.
I was the cause of.
Oh man.
I'm so proud.
But it's fucking ironic that we need to learn this latest terms from this Victorian old guy. he's from Paleolithic era or something. Like, what the fuck? And he was there when the dinosaurs were getting bombed or some shit. And now he's telling us, by the way, the new lingo.
See, this is the advantage of I watch Love Island, which is a sort of for you, it's like TV. Remember television? BJ.
Yeah.
Neither of you guys watch. You're these people who don't watch TV anymore. You know.
Yeah, exactly.
I don't even have a television.
You don't have a television. Yeah, I mean, it's so posh. You don't watch TV. I mean, you probably watch Netflix or something. But
no, I don't have a computer.
You don't even have a computer.
No,
You're a true manager. Jesus Christ.
He's manager, exactly.
You get your emails printed out. I used to work with managers like that. I thought they'd all gone, but it's great to see it coming back.
Yeah.
Anyway, yeah. So watching Love Island, you get all the juicy latest words.
Nice.
Confirm it with my kids.
But you should. I should subscribe to your Substack or some shit. Please keep posting these. How to understand the latest lingo.
Ray is not enough of a Nazi to have a Substack. You gotta be pretty right wing on that shit. Yeah, Walter, cut that.
Yeah, I think there are some nice people out there, but
on Substack.
Yeah,
sure.
It's like inadvertent. It's like I think there are certain platforms that are like owned by shitheads, like Twitter. I wouldn't call everyone on Twitter a Nazi, but they're Nazi adjacent.
Well, yeah. I mean, Twitter is just very welcoming of Nazis. That's all. Not everyone there is a Nazi, but
no.
Elon's cool with it. He's down with the NAS.
You don't have to be a Nazi to work here, but it helps.
It's recommended.
But isn't he going to rename everything to X or whatever? I think.
Sorry,
I thought he's going to rename everything to X or something. And
he tried
or some other shit.
X.com. That was his thing. He wants to have
it.
Yeah.
90s. Okay.
Yeah.
Jesus. I don't know if you watch. I don't know if you watch this TV program. You won't watch it, of course. TV programs. You don't watch
TV programs.
But there is a TV series called Succession. Have you ever heard of this thing?
Yeah. I actually watched that one. It's not. It's not a TV thing.
How did you manage to do that without a TV or without anything?
I have a TV. I'm not as advanced and progressive like Josh. Still.
Well, I haven't seen Succession, but I had someone read the script to me, so I'm caught up.
But
it's
on the HBO platform thingy.
Yeah, right.
Yeah,
but
the
main point is that they're like fail. What do they call them? Fail sons, fail children, fail siblings, and they're basically they've got this massive empire that their father, who's Rupert Murdoch, basically has built up. And they're obviously incompetent and not fit to manage it, but they're going to get to. I haven't finished the series yet, so I don't know what happens.
No, okay.
But the point is, I know you've read it all, Josh, but it's like, but the point is that that's what Lado is like, isn't it, Elon? Rich daddy or Donald Trump, rich daddy, but total like shitheads at business. But they think they're great at it, so same kind of thing, I guess.
Yep. Anyway,
we can cut this bit actually, because it's like, let's talk about fucking Clojure. Jesus Christ, what's this?
I mean,
what's this podcast descended into?
We don't need to talk about fucking Clojure. We can just talk about Clojure. That's fine.
Yeah.
We don't need to get all
family friendly. Yeah. I don't even have Clojure. I only have Babashka. So,
okay. Yeah. You're living the
fork. You have moved on.
I am. I'm post Clojure. It's
okay.
Except you have to have Clojure installed to run Babashka sometimes, because sometimes it execs Clojure, I think, under certain circumstances.
Okay, but it's just it's a daughter board type thing. It's just a sort of beautiful assistant.
Yeah, I'm not exactly sure. Like maybe that's different now. I just remember I wanted to do something, and Borkdude is like, "Oh, well, it's just shelling out to Clojure to do that," and I was like, "Oh, but I don't want to do Clojure anymore." So I'm probably even wrong. I probably just misunderstood what he was saying, because he's fucking some kind of rocket scientist, and I don't own a computer as we established previously. So.
No, you're gonna say he's a rocket scientist. I'm a manager.
Yeah, well, okay.
No. But what is the why is it this transition? Is it because of the type of the tools that you're working on, or
yes.
Or you're like, well, fuck JVM, I'm done.
Well, yeah, it was kind of fuck the JVM, because a lot of the stuff I do, it turns out I care about startup time. So it's just completely randomly. I ended up writing a lot of things that are not like long running programs, but do a thing and are done. And just waiting for the JVM to boot up. I mean, the thing that really got me into Babashka was Lambda, right? So it was working on serverless applications, and Clojure never had a great story for that. Like from the beginning, you could run the JVM, and you could, I think USwitch had a library called Lambada, and they did whatever. And of course, you could write the def class or whatever yourself. But and that was great. It worked. You had the JVM, but it took a while to start up. So the way Lambda works is that despite being serverless, it turns out they're actual servers somewhere, or containers or some crap.
God damn it!
And they have to like.
You should do your joke.
What?
Come on, you should do your joke.
I mean, it was in the previous episode anyway, but it's not my joke. I'm just stealing from some random internet dude, and there is, let's say, a graph that says like 0, thing, like a line chart with the 0. And then it says, well, my serverless app is now clientless.
Well, I'm pretty sure most of the stuff I work on is clientless.
I mean, it says something when you say, well, it needs to start up, do something, and then disappear.
Exactly.
Nobody wouldn't even notice that it was there.
Jeez.
Anyway, sorry.
Yeah.
But is this the Lambda thing that you blogged about
that we've got you on the show to talk about? Yeah.
Right.
So,
yeah.
Oh, okay. I thought it was just
apart from your managerial.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, maybe we could come back to your managerial style a bit later.
Yeah, sure.
I mean, we're only here for synergies and all the buzzwords and all that shit. So that shit can come later. So maybe let's focus on.
Should I shift the paradigm to?
Exactly.
So JVM on Lambda is not great, because not only does this like container thingy have to start, which, I mean, they've gotten that quite fast, AWS has, but you still have a container booting up, and then you have the JVM starting up. So if you write just a hello world Lambda in Java, I think maybe it takes around 1.5 or 1500 milliseconds thereabouts for the JVM to boot and it to return hello world to you. But in Clojure land, now you got to initialize the Clojure runtime. So realistically, you're looking at like 3-4 seconds for the JVM to start. So this isn't really a problem if you have pretty steady traffic, because once your Lambda runtime environment starts up, they keep it around for like 15, 20, 25, who knows, AWS knows, but they won't disclose. But 15 minutes is a pretty safe way to think about it. So if you have fairly steady traffic, it's not a problem, because that first request to your API or whatever is going to be expensive, but then the rest of them get amortized down. And but then the problem comes when you have, your traffic is still steady maybe, but it's rising, and then now Lambda has to fire up separate instances, because now you have too many concurrent requests, and it wants to spread them. And I mean, this is exactly why you're using Lambda, right? Because you want you want it to scale for you without thinking about it. But now you're introducing these random slow requests into the JVM startup and initializing Clojure.
It's kind of like hotspot at scale, isn't it? Really?
Yeah, kind of. Right. The jet has to warm up, but now it's the whole JVM has to
the whole fucking container, everything. Yeah. But,
So there are all of these tricks, and then AWS came out with this thing maybe two years ago thereabouts, which is called provision concurrency. So then you say, like, it's kind of like an auto scaling group. You say, like, give me minimum 5 Lambda instances at all times. So then but now you actually have to pay for those. So it's like getting
not exactly serverless in that sense.
Yeah. So it is
serverless, but you're paying for the server.
Yeah.
Serverless doesn't mean bill-less.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh God, yeah.
So you get Clojure on the JVM, if you have let's say an API, because this is what I was using them for, HTTP APIs, and as long as you don't need consistently low latency stuff, it's fine. It'll get the job done. And every once in a while, a request takes 5-6 seconds. And, for most things, people don't really care about that. The internet, sometimes that happens. You get a slow request.
Yeah.
But then, I don't know, there are situations in which you want a predictable, like P99, you want to say, okay, I need less than 1,000 milliseconds P99. So that's
what's P99 is, because I kind of vaguely know what I think you mean, but
it's P99 or TP99
or explain it.
Yeah, I was getting ready to explain
very
it.
managerial stuff,
Yeah, it was a little jargony. What that means is 99% of your requests are less than 1,000 milliseconds. If your P99 is 1,000 milliseconds, so 1% of your requests are more than that. If you want a predictably lower latency thing than that, then the JVM Clojure is not really going to do it for you. So what else can you do? Well, I tried Clojure script, obviously, and if you want a predictably lower latency thing than that, then the JVM Clojure is not really going to do it for you. So what else can you do? Well, I tried Clojure script, obviously, and the biggest mistake that was ever made in the history of humanity.
Wow. And come on. Oppenheimer has something to say about that. But
yeah, well, Oppenheimer, when he said, "I am become death, destroyer of worlds," that was right after he sketched, the blueprints for Node on a cocktail napkin. Had nothing
it wasn't
with
the Manhattan Project. It was
no.
It was his message to Roald Dahl.
Yeah, exactly.
Ryan Dahl,
Yeah.
Do this, son.
Well, that's why he's doing Edon or whatever it is. Dino.
Dino.
Yeah. So, Clojure script. People are using it on Lambda, but I just was fed up with building shit for a Clojure script. And Shadow CLJS is really nice, but it's still using all of the all of the NPM machinery, blah blah blah. And I think Thomas Heller made good choices there, where he's not trying to hide the complexity from you, right? He's trying to give you a thing that does what you want, but he's not doing millions of layers of abstraction to let you pretend you're not messing with NPM. And I don't have enough of a background in that stuff, and I found it frustrating and annoying. So,
but even if you do, though, Josh, even if you're kind of tolerant of it, there are certain things you that aren't there, like JVM stuff, JVM libraries.
Yeah.
Kind of a lot of those libraries exist only for the JVM, or are much better on the JVM.
Yeah.
So it's kind of it's definitely, you have to be tolerant of the difference, as it were, because there is a huge difference.
Yeah, there is. Yeah, exactly. And the biggest difference that I really can't stand is the whole async await silliness. It's just I get it. It's much better, right? Coroutines are the new whatever. Everybody should be something. But I'm old school. I was not around when the dinosaurs were nuked like Ray, but I was, next week I came by and looked at the smoldering wreckage.
The funny thing is, Josh, this is a bit of an aside to your story, and we'll come back to it, okay? We'll just just a slight interlude, just a very slight interlude.
Digression.
Yeah, is that to do some async testing in Clojure, actually, on Kafka, I wrote something last week, 10 days ago, using something called promise.
Yes,
and
I know it.
And then in the async code, I deliver. And then in the test code, I at the value and wait for it. It's like, promises are a thing in Clojure, and so it turns out that async await is always been there,
Yeah,
but in a nice way. Okay, carry on. Right, so back to harshing.
Yeah, well, I actually when I was first kind of discovering using AWS for Reels with Clojure, I actually did something where I spawned like 100 promises in Clojure and had them do something to Dynamo and blah blah blah. So yeah, I remember promises in Clojure.
Yeah.
I used them once.
Yeah,
in anger. It was fun. Yeah, but so you have a lot of different stuff. Like you have Promesa, which gives you like plet and all of this stuff for dealing with promises. Yeah. So you can kind of pretend that it's not this async await, weird style of programming until you can't, right? It's like everything. Eventually, the abstraction leaks, and you end up in some state where you're trying to be like, "Oh fuck, has this promise been delivered?" And blah blah blah. Do I deref this thing, or is it already the value? And I just can't. I just can't. My life is too short for this kind of nonsense. I don't want to learn new things. I'm a manager. I mean, I got out of that game. But then the other issue I have with, and this is just my experience. I mean, other people have their own, and I'm not trying to. So, like, let me give my disclaimer. I'm going to say a lot of nasty stuff about Node, but I'm not trying to shit on Node for people who like it and find it useful. Like, that's completely valid.
Different strokes for different folks.
Different strokes, yeah. So now that I've made that disclaimer, I will go back to saying Node is fucking terrible. And what is the fucking terriblest for me as a Clojure programmer? I mean, we were talking earlier about these, the people who use editors with no REPL integration or whatever. That's not me. Like, I can't. And the REPL experience in Node I just found was not great. And then this could be like, maybe it's gotten better, but it would mostly be okay, and then I would get myself into some weird condition where I couldn't eval something, or trying to debug this asynchronous code by like stuffing things in an atom or something, and then like seeing what got in the atom. Like, I even had sometimes that just I could see the code running, and then there was nothing in my atom, and I was like, "What the fuck is going on?" So yeah. That's no way to live. So then, of course, there were things like Lumo. And
Plank.
Lumo, Plank. I never tried Plank on Lambda, but I did try Lumo on Lambda, and Lumo really is like the whole reason that I did Lambda is because I tried Lumo and I was like, oh my god, I can edit my Clojure code in the fucking AWS Lambda console. This is amazing. Like, I don't want to go back to something that doesn't let me do that. And even like,
does AWS console support Emacs? Just I want to understand that.
Yeah, it does. Of course,
it's got a mode, doesn't it?
Yeah, it's got an Emacs mode.
Good to know. Good to know.
So I don't know if you've used this, BJ, but back in the day, actually, well, I had
Control W, Control S.
No, you don't need to. There is a plugin for all the things, and because all the text areas in the browser can be edited with an Emacs. That's what awesome. You're mentioning about, right?
So that was
you don't even need to say, I don't know if you used it. Like, yes, of course.
Of course.
I mean, look, the first thing I touch anything remotely technical, like, can I do this in Emacs?
Yeah, exactly.
That's I'm going to the dishwasher and I'm thinking, can I do this in Emacs?
Exactly.
So you don't need to working out how to do it in Emacs.
You don't need to. What the fuck is Control A, Control Z? No, you just already just edit it in Emacs, and it's going to transparently just move that to there. Yeah. So that's
good.
Anyway, yeah.
But yeah, don't hit Control A, Control Z, because that's gonna move to the beginning of the line and then suspend your Emacs process, and nobody wants that. So
yeah,
that could be a superpower.
That I accidentally do that sometimes. I accidentally hit like Control Z, and my Emacs window disappears, and I'm using like some ridiculous window manager that doesn't like show me, things that have been minimized. And I'm like, how do I get this back? This happens roughly like 2 or 3 times a year, and it like takes me 30 seconds to figure out what the fuck just happened. Cord up for what?
Oh man!
But yeah, so Lumo lets me.
Tales.
Yeah,
that's so funny.
Yeah.
He's risen.
So yeah, the Lumo. I can't remember. I don't know if it was the person who wrote Lumo or it was just some random, Clojurist, but somebody produced a runtime for Lambda that let you use Lumo. Or maybe you had to roll your own. Maybe there was like a README or something. I don't remember. But, but that was super cool. And so when I had a let's say mandatory extended vacation from a previous job. And so like I was one of those.
You took a sabbatical, is that what
I did? Yes, yes, I was given a sabbatical, if you will. No, but so yeah, I got laid off from a job with the kind of first wave of the tech layoffs. So the fintechs kind of started the wave when the VC money started getting tight, and so I had a nice long summer vacation. I think I had like 4 or 5 months between jobs, 4 months maybe. And I decided I was going to like finally solve this fucking Clojure on Lambda, story once and for all. And
what a hero. This is a heroic tale, actually, isn't it?
It is.
It's like Ulysses,
Yeah, it is a fool's journey. I submitted a talk for this where I was going to do kind of a Terry Pratchett style, the fool's journey through, trying to do something relatively straightforward and all these things going wrong. But so yeah, I kind of made a little checklist of the things that I really wanted to have, like, and one of them was like the fast starts. So we call them in Lambda land, fast cold starts. So a cold start is that process where the container plus JVM or container plus runtime, I should say, has to boot up. So that has to be fast. I wanted a good REPL experience with developing the stuff. That really has nothing to do with Lambda, but that kind of, I didn't basically want to use Clojure script because I was unhappy with how that worked. I really wanted to be able to edit the code in the console. And the reason for that is, and Clojure programmers are going to recoil in horror when I say this, but sometimes when you're debugging issues on a Lambda, like the most common problems you run into are like your IAM permissions are not quite right for whatever your Lambda is trying to do. And the feedback loop of making a change in the code and then deploying it and seeing if that works, and it's usually really silly things like adding debug prints, right? So it feels very old school. It doesn't feel very Clojure-y, but yes, you're putting debug prints in. And being able to do that in the console like gives you a lot lower, kind of a lot faster feedback loop on stuff like that. So, it wouldn't have been a deal breaker, but it was pretty important to me to be able to do that.
I think at the end of the day, I mean, the REPL stuff and everything like that is fast feedback loops. So I think if you're getting a fast feedback loop,
right,
that you can't get outside the REPL, then I think it's a win. I think you're making a really good point there, because you can have a REPL, but if it's not like hooked directly into this Lambda, which obviously
and
is
you
never
can't
going to
do
be.
that. No. Yeah. Well, you could. We talked about this, Ray. Maybe you could, but you shouldn't. You definitely shouldn't.
Well, it's hit and miss, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, that was like, so what did I say? I said fast cold starts. I said good REPL experience, editing in the console, and no fucking Node.js anywhere near that shit. That was like the fourth, that just no.
It's not Node.js, it's Node.js.
Exactly, Node.js. None, not at all.
Yeah.
So then I kind of, I had played with Babashka a very tiny bit, but I figured like Babashka is kind of the perfect thing, because it's, its whole purpose is to start up fast and let you, write something that's more or less Clojure. And I mean, these days it's more Clojure. It's I mean, almost everything is supported inside these days. So, so that was kind of, I picked up Babashka and I was like, this is going to be the answer to all of my problems. And indeed it was. And it was, of course, the cause of a few more problems, but such is life. And then, like, I think, so I started messing with this, and something like, how Bork Dude is. It's like something like 15 fucking days later, he's like, oh, I did this thing in BB. And I was like, what the fuck is this? Like, what is wrong with you? So, I mean, Bork Dude and I have kind of a love-hate relationship, in that, like, he's great, but I hate him forever because he did NBB. So he's dead to me. I even bought
NBB is the Node version of Babashka.
Yes, thank you. Yes, I should have said that. Yeah. So he has.
I mean, given the amount of shit that you're flinging at Node,
you just didn't want to mention Node again, did you?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
exactly. Get that out of your mouth.
Well, he has these amazing Babashka T-shirts, right? And I bought one, and he was actually nice enough because he had done some of those, like, those web shops where you can upload your designs. And people can order the shirt. So I love the Babashka shirt because the Babashka logo is super cool. I mean, hopefully most people listening will have seen it, but if not, Google it, put it in the show notes, whatever. So I tried to order one of these shirts, and the shirt was like, whatever, 25 euros or something. And then the fucking shipping was like 50 euros. so I like, I posted on
that's a big commitment.
Yeah, exactly. So I posted this on Clojure and Slack, and Bork Dude is like, oh, fuck. And of course, like 3 minutes later, he's posted 5 links to like new web shops. And he's like, all right, try one of these 5 and see. So he even said, like, he was sitting there like uploading his shit to all these other t-shirt printing things. So, and this explains how Bork Dude gets so much done. This is the kind of dedication that he approaches everything with. So I bought a shirt for a reasonable shipping price, and it's super dope. It has the Babashka logo on the front, and
in the back is Node.js.
On the back, it's fucking NBB. It's, god damn it.
I mean, it's kind of, I don't know if it is called metaphorical or maybe, poetic justice, or you turned your back to NBB, right? So that's okay.
I mean,
so you can still wear the t-shirt. Yes.
Well, I did wear it.
You want to wear it with a jacket at all times, do you?
No, I wore it to Dutch Clojure days, and I put a piece of fucking duct tape over the NBB on the back just to wind up Bork Dude. So there was NBB, and you wrote a blog post on the Jux blog about it, didn't you, Ray? About like Lambda with NBB is the best thing since sliced bread. And then I was like, fuck Ray.
This is I'm gonna go to his podcast and then tell him.
Exactly.
Yeah, well, I appreciate your candor.
Exactly.
It's excoriating, but I appreciate it.
Yeah. So that's how the whole Lambda thing got started, anyway.
Yeah. And isn't it at this point? Isn't it better to use some other language instead of just? Well, or is it like the Mount Everest thing? Like, why did you do this? Yeah, because I can.
Well, I mean, it's a really good question, and yes, the answer is more or less because I can't. But the thing is, like I said, I'm a manager. I don't write code, for a living anymore. So when I do write code, I want to have fun. I don't want to fucking use some language that doesn't fill my heart with joy. Like, if you're paying me to write code, I will use whatever language you tell me to. No problem. I'm a professional.
No, except Node.js.
Well, except Node.js, yeah. Because you'd have to pay me a lot for that anyway. Yeah. But, so, like, what I wanted to do was have a Lambda runtime for my own stuff, the stuff I wanted to do. Honestly, at that point, I don't even know if I had it. Oh, yeah, no, I did have a use case. Because when I got laid off and had all this free time on my hands, I decided I was going to start a blog and I was going to try to write one post a day, just to improve my writing. It wasn't and you do it in public so that you have some accountability. So people like Ray can be like, what the fuck? It's been 13 days since you last posted some meaningless shit about your dog.
You asked me to do it. That's what I said.
Yeah, I did. It's true.
It's like, unlike some people who put out words like I owe you fuck all, nothing. I owe you nothing. Some people say that. You sort of said, oh no, I owe you a post a day.
Yeah. I
so I annoyingly took you at your word.
Yeah. Yeah. It felt like there was a subtweet, but I don't know who it was aimed at, so I'm just going to let that slide.
It just said slide,
yeah. It slid in. So I wanted to do some kind of just site view analyzer thingy that just told me you've gotten this many hits on this page and they came from these IPs and blah, 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 blah. And it turns out I found out that AWS CloudFront gives you a nice graphical dashboard with all of that shit. I didn't know that.
But I'm gonna make a shittier, broken version of it in my own framework.
Exactly. Yeah. So that is what I wanted to use it for. I wanted to have a Lambda that would, because this blog was hosted on S3, so it was when you get a page load, you can have something kick a Lambda or whatever, and blah blah blah. I forget exactly what my intention was, but it was something like that. And so that was what I needed it for. And so I wanted to do it in Clojure, just because I wanted to do something that was pleasant to me to write in. And I have a lot of experience with AWS and Clojure, and honestly, having a REPL that is connected to AWS is one of the most powerful experiences you can imagine. Because you can do anything. You're just in a REPL. It's like a shell. So once you've tasted that power, once you've become drunk on that, you can't go back to whatever it is people did before. I don't know what it.
Yeah.
So that was it. Yeah.
Terraform.
Well, I mean, hey, I like Terraform. As it turns out, there's some Terraform in Lambda too, right?
Ooh. Yeah, well, harsh on that later.
Yeah, you can do that. Yeah.
Maybe I think it's a good idea to explain what exactly is Lambda providing, and is it a framework or is it something?
He's getting there. He's getting there.
Yeah.
No, but I mean, it's
this is going to be a long show,
Yeah.
He's doing a blog a day at a time.
Exactly, and after another 1 hour of shitting on Node, we'll get to the point.
I'll ask my wife if she can bring in a beer. Actually,
you finished your wine already?
I finished my wine. Yes.
Oh God,
I need more.
I'm just on water, tragically, but
oh God.
So the question was, what is Lambda? Yeah, so it is primarily a runtime. So a Lambda runtime is, back in the day, AWS they introduced Go as a runtime for Lambda, right? So the original ones were like Node and Python and Java, maybe. And when they released the Go one, some people found out that like the Go one was doing these things with network requests, and so like, hey, you could actually use the Go runtime to have a Haskell Lambda or have a this, that, or the other. And so AWS eventually released like a custom runtime. So it's like you need to basically upload a zip file that has an executable called Bootstrap. I think that's the name of it. And that can either be a shell script or it can be a Linux binary, like ELF binary, whatever. So that bootstraps your runtime environment, and then there is Lambda has a runtime API. So your runtime basically does an HTTP request saying like, give me the next invocation of my function, and that's a blocking call. And when it returns, the response is like basically a map of the HTTP request. So it feels very ring-tacular, right? In Clojure land, you get back a map. And then you can process that however you want. And then you post back to the runtime API, like, here's the response. And so that's how the runtime works. So the Lambda runtime packages the Babashka binaries. So I use the pre-built Linux, either the AMD 64 or the ARM 64 version of Babashka. So the Babashka, like their build system produces these statically linked binaries, and statically linked is super duper important because otherwise you have to make sure that you build Babashka on the Amazon whatever Linux that is the thing. So the statically linked binaries are a game changer. And so the Bootstrap script, all it does is it runs Babashka on a script that handles like the runtime API stuff. And then the runtime API stuff basically just requires in the entry-level namespace of your code, and then Bob's your uncle. So this gives you the ability to the runtime itself is deployed as a Lambda layer, and then you deploy your function as a like just through the function code thing. So the result of that is like everything in the function code thing is you're able to edit that in the console, but then the stuff in other layers doesn't show up in the console because it's somewhere else on the file system. So this gives you the nice experience where like I can write my entire Lambda in one Clojure file if I want to, and the runtime like will take care of invoking it for me. So it's a very kind of minimal experience, and that's what I was going for. But then of course like I also wanted this stuff to be easy to use. So I wanted to be able to like deploy build the runtime, update the runtime when a new version of Babashka comes out, whatever. So you deploy that daily. As a layer. Yeah, pretty much. Actually, while we've been recording, I think 3 new versions have come out. I have my Emacs RSS feed reader just like on the Bork Dude GitHub feed. So I also have some kind of build machinery stuff. So there's some written in Babashka, of course. So you have scripts for like building the runtime and building your code so that you have to zip it up and upload it to Lambda and so on. And then because I actually do like Terraform, what I decided to do is just have write a script in Babashka that would spit out some Terraform configuration. So now I can use Terraform like IAC just to manage all my stuff. And of course, like Ray got really angry about that because he's like, well, this isn't simple anymore. You made me use Terraform, blah, blah, blah. Because you wanted it to be easy. So no, it's not simple. And I was like, Ray, fuck off. You can just use whatever you want, to build this shit. So
mostly all I heard was Ray, fuck off, but it's fair enough.
I mean, but
so you got the gist of it.
Yeah, exactly. So I mean, all of this stuff is optional. So like you have the basic Babashka script, just it'll build the runtime as a zip, it'll build your code as a zip, and you can get that onto AWS any way you see fit. And I even used so the funny thing was, as I was developing this and also writing my blog concurrently, I started out my blog by cloning. So Bork Dude had this quick blog thing, which was his blog. And back in the day, you just cloned his blog and then replaced his content with your content. That's how you did a blog. So I don't know. I annoyed him somehow when I was, producing my blog with his cloned thingy. And he was like, I need to actually, make this stuff a library so that people can use it without cloning my repo and stuff. And so, so he did that. And then the two of us started working on QuickBlog because, I wanted to do some weird thing and, whatever. And then in the course of that, I ran into some limitations of the Babashka Cli stuff. So the command line interface library. So then I started working on that a bit with him. And I mean, when I say I started working on it with him, I mean, I wrote a function somewhere and then he was like, where's the test for this? I'm not merging this shit without a test. And I'm like, God damn it. This is REPL-driven development, Bork, dude. What test? I sent him a screenshot of my REPL, there's the test. Fuck off. So anyway, this is
he's a manager as well,
Yeah, is he? Oh my god.
Of his repos, yes.
Oh right, yes.
Yeah.
His iron fist. But this was supposed to be an advertisement for Babashka Cli because it's super awesome. And one of the things you can do is you can do these sub command things. And so Lambda uses that. So the way you do stuff is you're bb lambda whatever build runtime or something. But if you want the Terraform config, then you say bb lambda Terraform generate config, right? So you see you could slot in CloudFormation or whatever the damn kids these days are using, like CDK. So if you hate yourself, you can do it that way. But for me,
bare configuration options,
Yeah. Did you say bare or better?
There are bare configuration options,
I mean, we already established bare means better now. So
bare,
No, many.
Oh,
yes. Many. Okay,
They are legion, myriad configuration options. So that's what Blend is.
But did you compare it with because one of the main pain points that you're talking about, the startup time and potentially performance, and did you compare it with any other runtimes, and then or is it any rough estimate that this is going to be on par with Node.js, or is it going to be going to be better?
In terms of startup time, so I did some rough benchmarks and I mean convinced myself that you're looking at a P99 of 50 milliseconds or less, which was fine. I mean, so there's no way it beats Node because I think that's their most heavily optimized one, and they've done all sorts of they're probably running
work around it.
Node and LLVM or some shit. It's a kernel process, but probably.
Or maybe there is a special CPU and GPU.
Maybe.
Yes, they're building custom processors for Node.
It's their NPU,
I think they have Hello World of Node built into the kernel.
Probably. But so again, since this was just for my own purposes, I would have been satisfied with anything under 100. And, I would never advise anyone to use Lambda for actual production code simply because I don't owe you anything and I'm not going to fucking support you.
It's the Clojure way. It's the Clojure way.
It is.
It's great that you're a manager now and you're seeing.
Yeah.
That's the founding principle.
So I would happily myself run shit in production with Lambda because I'm the one who's accountable for it. So because people get a little nervous, but Babashka is pretty fucking great. It's what do you want? You want enterprise support? Join Clojure and Slack and ask a question on the channel. And if Pork Dude takes longer than 15 seconds to answer, he's on a train in Siberia or some shit.
His SLA is going down.
His P99 is going down.
No, but in all seriousness, so it was very much good enough for my needs, and I thought about I'm going to do some serious benchmarks, and then I was like, but that sounds
but it's always very
do that. No. I'm a manager,
Exactly.
I'll have somebody else benchmark my stuff.
But I think the main point is if you even forgetting kind of all the Lambda stuff, if you know that BB basically starts in less than 100 milliseconds, it's not going to start in AWS any slower, is it?
No. Oh yeah, and I mean, BB starts in God, I don't know. It starts in no time. Let me just see here. Time BB dash E.
We're actually doing live
live
benchmarking here.
Ink one. There we go. That was 0.025 seconds. So what is that? I don't know. Is that 25 milliseconds? There you
go.
Yeah.
Not bad.
And that's that's when I'm running Zencaster, taking up all my CPU. I don't even want to show you this computer that I'm using because it's embarrassing. It's
it's a manager computer.
It's very old. It's very old. I had to borrow a computer from my neighbor for this recording because I don't have my own.
Yeah,
Yeah.
You've got a PS5, but that's it.
We wish we could send the questions in, printed, and then you could have answered.
We should be very impolite of us to actually make use of it.
Exactly, yeah.
It's terrible.
But what is I think because you're now managing a team of people and obviously Clojure people, right? And so how do you see the Clojurians, or how do you see Clojure now not being IC and actually managing people who are actually writing Clojure?
Yeah,
what is IC?
Individual contributor. No, it's what we managers call you fucking people we can fire.
I know what IC is. I fucking hate IC.
Yeah, I know.
Anyone who calls me an IC must be from HR, and they're twats. So fuck off.
That is the name for people who are actually making money for us, and then sitting back and not using computers
and just extracting.
I did have this conversation before. It's individual contributors. I hate that idea. What would you rather cause? Well, how about worker?
Yes.
Oh my god! Oh, me, a worker? No, I'm a sort of
Right.
I'm a professional. I don't know what you're a worker.
I like that, I'm kind of individual contributor on some things, and I'm kind of, managing depending on the situation when we're working in a small company. And it's there is an individual contributor, there is a collective contributor. So I want to be a collective contributor. So you don't need to notice what I'm doing. So I'm just part of a group, and there's a group output. I don't know the fuck.
So individual contributor is a way to sort of atomize your contribution. Make you feel lonely and alone.
Exactly.
Yeah, just to crush your dreams. Anyway.
Okay, great. Yeah.
Sorry.
Way to go, HR. Way to resource those humans. Sorry. Anyway, I see. Yeah. Okay.
So
where were we?
What was the question, BJ?
No, because I was wondering, because you're now managing people who are writing Clojure, right? And now, because you've been in part of the teams who were writing Clojure before, and do you see now, because right before we started recording, we were thinking, or we're talking about like the Clojure at large, like in the community, and the problems that come with not enough new people coming into the community and all that stuff. So do you feel the pinch? Do you see that in the hiring, in the team, in your company?
Yeah. Well, certainly. So I joined the company like about 9-10 months ago. And so they grew a lot before I joined and have since contracted a bit. But definitely when the company was growing at a fast pace, they pretty much hired up all of the Clojure programmers, within their gravity well.
Exactly.
All of them
within 2,000 kilometer radius.
Exactly. And so that was an actual issue, So they started hiring people who didn't have any Clojure backgrounds, mostly with JavaScript front end background, because the company does a web application. That's the main thing. So we've kind of, I don't know where you two stand on it, but I used to be of the opinion that learning Clojure is super easy, and you just hire any decent programmer and they can learn it. And to some extent that's true, but it does still take you a while to get proficient. Like with any tool, yes, I can learn the syntax of this programming language in a couple of weeks. But learning the idioms takes longer, and it works pretty well if you're in teams that are I would say teams that are both co-located and do a lot of pairing or mobbing. It's any kind of group programming that works really, really well. I'm sure so my company is remote first, and we do a lot of, my team anyway does a lot of pairing and mobbing. Using one of the video meeting platforms, and I will not disclose which, but but that does work pretty well. So it's kind of, with Clojure people, it's a double-edged sword, right? If you're trying to hire Clojure programmers, that is attractive. So a lot of people will apply because they're like, I really want to do Clojure. And most of those people don't have a whole lot of experience with Clojure. Some of them very little, and others okay, they've been doing stuff at home for fun for a while, and now they want to get paid to work in it, which is fine. And sometimes those people, the stuff they're doing at home is industrial grade type stuff, and then but for a lot of people, they're playing around with it like I do, right?
And then you come have just screenshots in terms of tests.
Exactly. And then you come into a work context, and just it's a very different style of of writing Clojure. And so there is a learning curve and so on, but I don't think Clojure programmers are any different. I don't believe that whole thing of Clojure programmers are this type of person, and they're they play musical instruments, and they're this and that. No, because I've seen a wide variety of people who are good Clojure programmers, and all they have in common is they use Emacs, because
that makes sense. I mean, that's that is the only yardstick to measure Clojure programmers.
Exactly.
Anyway, you still see that in the surveys and all that stuff. So that's much easier.
But it's kind of funny. I'm gonna go off on a small tangent, still related to management and Clojure.
Go ahead.
I would advise people out there, if you're trying to get Clojure into your shop, don't say anything along the lines of this will let us be way more productive. Because I've worked at a million places, and I've seen a million people use a million programming languages, and honestly, the time to ship it doesn't matter what programming language you're using. Mainly, it matters like what problem you're solving.
Yeah.
So,
and also the people,
and the people, and all. So there's so many variables. Like, it's definitely true that like if you give me a problem to solve and you give me a choice of 3 different programming languages and one is Clojure, yes, I will be much more productive in Clojure. But for any random team, that's not the case, and that's what I've seen, at my current employer too. It's like it's not like we ship software amazingly fast because we use Clojure. We've got a complex application and it takes time, and what you get with Clojure is hopefully you get code that's simpler, but that's not necessarily true either.
Sorry, I think it's in our tendency to try to find one reason and then rally behind it, right? And then it's always easy to say it's because of Clojure, and then I mean, just I think right before we started this, I think Ray and I were just riffing a little bit, and I was also mentioning that the productivity and the usage of the application has no relationship with the language itself, right? There are enough people who built amazing shit super fast in Ruby and Rails, in PHP and Node,
C++, whatever.
C++, exactly. And there is of course there is a objective difference between languages, and we can certainly say, hey, the experience here is much more enjoyable, much more simpler compared to the other things, and but that's not the only variable in this thing, as you're saying, right? So that's this is something that probably we need to maybe personally I feel like the in general unnecessary superiority, at least projected, not a feeling, but at least that is the impression that other people get, like the Lisp Clojure people think they are, or whatever. That's something need to die. This is really bad for inviting new people. It's really bad for growing the community, I think. Anyway.
Well, ironically, like that's how I got in the door. I was reading fucking Paul Graham's book all those years ago. That's what got me into Scheme. And like, talk about Arab superiority. I mean, that dude, he is high on his own farts, let's just say. And so that got me in the door. And unfortunately, I imported that whole way of thinking of like, now I get it. Lisp, I'm you people with your toys going. But then I've encountered the same thing, like with some people in the Haskell community have that kind of attitude toward everything. And then you see it, and not all, of course. Like many people in the Haskell community are absolutely lovely and humble and welcoming. But then you see that, and you look in the mirror, and you're like, oh my God, am I like that? Like, is the Clojure community like that? Like, please no. But I think that's a great point, Vijay. And another thing you said in there was like, it's about happiness, right? We might be happier writing Clojure, and I honestly believe that like the happier your team is with their work, I mean, that's where productivity comes from. I really think.
Yeah.
100%.
So that's if you get a bunch of people who like to write Clojure, then let them write Clojure, and I think you'll get good results. But just don't make these promises, because first of all, I mean, show me the studies showing that language A is more productive than language B.
Exactly.
Define productivity, whatever.
Yeah.
But also, I think if you're not using the right tools, then Clojure can be a horrible experience. If you're prepared to, if you don't mind like the brain fuck of all of these like unbanned parentheses, then fair enough.
Well, we never feel that because we use Emacs. But anyway, go on.
No, but if you use Emacs without parentheses, you'd be fucked.
Yes. Yes.
So these people who do that, I mean, kudos to them who kind of balance their own parentheses. That's it's a superpower. It's like doing your own accounts or something. It's just not something I'm going to do. But
I think Rich uses Notepad, right?
Something like that, yeah. I've seen his Emacs. We've seen him on screen using Emacs. So he's in your camp. So
excellent.
Yeah, he uses Emacs. Yeah.
But what I was going to say was that I think the other problem that I see sometimes as well is that people like, although they come and they want to do Clojure, etc., they bring like language X or language Y with them. So they write Clojure like Python or like Ruby or like Java, and often all three, you know. And it's like, what is going on in this code base? Oh my God, you know, it's like, what is occurring?
You just remove the parentheses and then you see Java.
Yeah, exactly. Like, oh, okay. Exactly. Yeah, where's all this try catching? What the hell, you know? So, you know, it's like, it's kind of like that, you know, and you see that that in many places, and then it becomes like, wow, actually, this is not fun to work with. You know, this is actually this is torture. You know, why would people enjoy this? You know, so you've got to get like, people have to write Clojure, and then you have to like enjoy like the idioms of Clojure, like you said. Learning that isn't always obvious, and
exactly.
Like, you know, a lot of these things these days. I remember speaking to someone a long time ago about like the beginning of Clojure was fine, but if you've got to kind of like look at a code base with core async, transducers, reducers, educers, what the fuck, you know, I think it's just taking a piss at this point, but you know.
Wait, is that a real thing? Educer?
Eduction is a real thing.
Eduction,
Eduction, yeah. I know. Yeah. It's like it's just it's crossing.
I think at this point it feels like you don't know what eduction is. Get a dictionary, you retard. Just get buy a dictionary. What the fuck, you know?
But you know, but I'm kind of joking. But the point is that I mean, it's all true what I'm saying, but it's also funny, you know. But it's a relative. It can become, you know, if you're doing like multi-methods with component systems and you know, all these other things, it can start to become a bit complicated. You know, I mean, reading an aero configuration file for the first time isn't everyone's idea of joy, you know? Even though it does help. You know, it helps with a certain set of use cases, but you know, so I'm not knocking that thing, but it just means that like in a professional setting, you're going to encounter a lot more code with a lot more styles, with a lot more surface area, and Clojure's not a small, simple language anymore. It's got a lot of stuff, you know.
But I think, I mean, in that case, you know, objectively, I would say, well, it's difficult to say objectively, but from my personal perspective, you know,
that's the
other languages. Exactly.
From my perspective, objectively,
because there is only one
philosophy
perspective
major
in the
here.
world. There is only one perspective, that is mine. So there is no. I think that, I mean, if you see the amount of syntactical elements compared to any other language, you know, it is objectively less, right? The syntactical element is less, but the semantics are the thing that you need to learn, you know. So I think that is the part which people don't realize if we sell it like, oh, it has no syntax, it's awesome. For half an hour. Now I have all this new stuff that I don't know, and the libraries and everything. Luckily, I mean, we can still say cumulatively it's less than if you are entering Scala, if you're entering Haskell, because the amount of concepts that you need to learn syntactically is way higher. Exactly. So that is still, I think, you know, for me, even now, I was trying to learn some JavaScript, and the JavaScript that I learned like 20 years ago, 15 years ago is completely different. And it's impossible for me to grok. I need to read like, oh, is this ES6? Is this ECMA or whatever? I don't know. Something different. And so they keep adding to the language. And I think things like Clojure extend it in the library world in that direction, but still syntactically closer to the language, which is slightly easier, I think.
The thing that I like about Clojure, I mean, if we're going to sort of like, if I'm going to turn it slightly around, is that the thing I like about it is that if you are using a REPL and you can like fire up a REPL and make like requests against a REPL and do stuff, and it kind of works, then when you're shipping your code, if you've been doing REPL driven development, then it usually will just work, you know. You don't have to do a lot of building and deploying kind of stuff, you know. Whereas a lot of other languages, there's a kind of a pipeline. You know, you've written your code, and it's all kind of fine, you think, but then there's like this other admin process of actually shipping your code. And I like the fact that with Clojure, that is really pretty small. That kind of gap between like actually writing the code and deploying it is almost zero. And I think that's, and it can be zero, in fact. So which is really good. I think that's a really great thing about Clojure.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah, I think if these are the ones that are being, advertised and then told to people, hey, this is the difference between different languages. So pick whatever the thing that you have most affinity for, and we enjoy this because of these reasons, and then keep pushing this positive message, and keep making this openly discussed, and make it like that, rather than saying, well, if you write Lisp, you're fucking awesome, and then that's it. That's the reason why we win. And okay, that sounds like a dumbest way of advertising anything,
But
so
I think that's exactly right. And I was just thinking, like earlier when we were talking about different languages, like for me, the best way to learn a new language is to sit with somebody who knows it really well and just like I'm gonna suspend all judgment for 3-4 weeks. I'm just gonna
empty your cup.
I'm just gonna do what they do, and it's all in zeroing in on like what are the things about this language that are like good. Like, are these the things that I value? Maybe not, right? And so that's why for me with like something like Haskell, like I can write it. But the things that Haskell is good at are not things that I especially value. And I think there might be use cases where you would value those things, right? But those are not the use cases I have. And so I think it's like you said, BJ, it's like listing, okay, the things that I enjoy about Clojure are, the REPL driven development, the this, the that, and like if those sound nice to you, give Clojure a shot. If they don't, that's cool too.
And also it's the what I notice more and more is that when people I see some stories about, hey, we wrote everything in Clojure and Clojure script, now we're going back to TypeScript or whatever because of various reasons, right? I mean, it's not a dig at the language, it's not a dig at something, but there are broader reasons, wider, way more reasons than just language to switch from A to B. And they're like, but the ideas that we get from Clojure are still being used here. And that's what, things like Haskell did as well. Like people learning Haskell, noticing, oh, I can write, it restricts me to think really functionally. And then now you come to and you see the advantage of it, and you see the friction points in the language, and you go to another language where, I mean, hopefully another general purpose language, not like, you can't do this shit in this language sort of thing. There you apply the ideas, and like Clojure is, essentially, if you see Clojure core, as mentioned, I think 1 million times, it's basically a copy of Haskell Prelude. Basically, all the functions are pretty much the same. So that's what the nice thing about finding the thing that gives you joy. And now you see, oh, I like these principal ideas in this language, and I can now, I learned this really nice stuff because of these reasons. I'm going to use this here. And more you see the functional thing coming into Python, and some static typing ideas and everything. And in the end, I think everybody's life gets better, right? It's not just Haskell people are doing great stuff and rest of the languages are shit.
I think I remember like this Evan, oh my god, I'm going to screw his name, Evan Kopelski, the Elm guy.
Right.
He wrote this thing about Let's Go Main. He wrote this thing. He made a presentation at some Lambda days or something about Let's Go Mainstream, and his argument was that things like function, referential transparency, and all this kind of stuff, it doesn't matter a fuck, because no one can get it, no one groks it. If you actually want to explain to people why it's good, you'll say something like fewer bugs or simpler to debug. So you can use like safety or debuggability as a kind of code phrase for immutability, referential transparency, pure functions. Well, I hope not, but I won't. No. But I've often said this about not about Clojure specifically, but I mean, I think like immutability as a concept is pretty fine, but as a word, it's pretty offensive. No one knows what the fuck it means. And it also is a bit of a sort of weird word in the sense that it's like an academic word. It implies immutability implies you can never change anything, and it's kind of true, but it's kind of wrong, because the whole idea of immutable data is that you can't change it when it's in flight. No one can change it underneath you. You're not going to get any concurrent update exceptions, but you can add to a collection. You can add to an immutable collection. It's fine. So it's kind of like this idea of immutability is sort of wrong. Or it's like it doesn't. It's correct, but it's not communicating enough. And I often feel like that with functional programming. I think there's a superiority of the mathematical language, and I feel like somehow we need to go back to the drawing board and like Evan Kowalski did, and just sort of basically try to be a bit more straightforward about it and less academic and snooty to some extent.
Well, I mean, you mentioned Daniel Higginbotham, right? Because the Clojure for the and Clojure for the brave and true, right?
It's the other thing. Yeah, sorry.
Because that's very it's more towards what you're talking about. Like, okay, it uses the words immutability, but those are not up front. It's like, here's the thing, and by the way, Clojure is called that immutability, for your
reference. Yeah.
And there's also, hopefully you've looked at Maria.cloud. I think Berlin Clojure Bridge people, I think.
To teach Clojure.
And that is really great too, because it also, it's aimed at beginners to programming. But it very much goes away from that whole like superiority thing.
Yeah.
But isn't it maybe, I'm going to take the other side of the argument now, just for the sake of it. Isn't it then if we start using the words that don't mean the thing, like there is a reason why you pick a word, to
like
mean something. No, I mean, in a way that makes sense, right? Because you need to be very careful about what you're calling it, because people might get a different idea of what it is. Maybe that's the clear example of immutability, because the general notion of immutability.
A great example of this is Rust. Okay, they don't talk about there's a technical phrase for what is occurring when you kind of borrow memory. There's a language before Rust that invented this concept. I can't remember what it's called now. It's like temporal
borrowing or something.
Borrowing is the one that Rust uses, but I think it's called something like temporal blah blah blah.
I see.
Some with the correct name essentially.
Right.
Yeah. But Rust doesn't talk about borrowing even. Rust talks about memory safe. It says it's a memory safe language. Yeah. So now, okay, you could indeed argue that they're sort of like lying about it, but they're not really. They're getting the message across.
Fair enough.
So I think it's fine.
That's true.
I think to use friendly language or more language that is kind of communicating more than academic words. Mathematical principles.
So there is no initial barrier. Of course, later you can explain much deeper meaning later. You don't need to say, oh, you don't know what monad is. It's just, whatever, something an end of or something.
I mean, this is the thing that I think, to some extent, it's a bit weird, because I think there's a lot of harshing on people doing that in the Clojure world. Even Rich himself seems to laugh at these kind of things. And yet we kind of do it as well. There's a sort of blah 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 with these transducers and shit. Come on.
we do that, but it's right when we do it.
Exactly. I mean, it's like this idea of correctness is just take the ball out of your arse, mate, and let's just communicate in a friendly way. And then if you really need, for whatever reason, to be mega strict, then fine. But this idea of one word fitting everything is a bullshit anyway. It's just like the idea of every dictionary And the funny thing is, like, Rich goes to a dictionary, and there's always 5 meanings for every word. He picks one that's close to what he wants. That's fine, that's what he wants to do, and that's great, But stop telling me there's only one meaning for these things, Oh, and the Latin means this, and who gives a fuck what the Latin means, It doesn't matter.
And then
it's
we
just telling a story, which is fun.
And then we end up with Riz.
Yeah. But the thing is, it's like the backronym sort of thing. No, you end up with this you end up with this like thing that you want to solve. You look it up in the dictionary, you find like 15 words which all mean different things. You mash them all together to sort of vaguely come together around one idea that you've got. And it's a trick, and it's a fun trick, But it can be used as a kind of tool of oppression, let's say, if you want to get
sure.
I think
really kind of harsh about it,
This is what I was saying like a few days ago. I think, Ray, you saw that as well on Euro Clojure, the Clojure Europe channel, and somebody mentioned contiguous vacation.
Oh yeah.
And for me, I always read contiguous like contagious. Sorry, and I'm like, I was thinking like contagious. Like, what, isn't it disease or something? Like, no, it's like contiguous, and then it's very difficult to have like a English in the communication anymore, because the words are so much different in every context, every community. So you can't just say, well, it used to mean this in Latin. Like, I don't give a fuck, sorry. what does Riz mean in Latin? I have no clue.
I mean, I think classic one for me back in the day in Unix was cat. It's like, why is it called cat? Oh well, because concatenation. Okay. Well, I don't know what the fuck that means. But it sounds good. But what? Okay, now you've explained what concatenation means. What's that got to do with this cat thing? Oh, it's because I'm concatenating input from a disk to a terminal. What? No, that's not right. Now you're really hurting my head. I understand now what concatenation is. What cat is joining these two things? No, shut up. They're unjoinable.
Oh, man.
You're lying to me big time. Anyway, that's
but that is the kind of elitist thing, right? Because back in the day, like, there is this Unix Power Tools book, and I felt like I have this secret knowledge of all these weird command names and that nobody knows about. And meanwhile, Richie and Kennigan and Richie sitting, and then, how do I fuck this thing to be just 2 character? Like LS? Okay,
AR.
Going on. FD, AR, so why not? What should we call this? AUK. Okay, why? Because it's the first names, last names, whatever, first characters. Move on.
Exactly. We've got 8 bits of memory for our whole operating system. We're going to shorten things,
Exactly.
Yeah.
Anyway,
well, Clojure, So Clojure is awesome, and that's what we want to say.
It is awesome, but let's be nice to people. I think we're saying, and everyone is lovely and nice in Clojure as well, so that's all fine.
Except people using NBB. Those people get out.
Everyone is welcome except for Node people.
Okay, but we said Clojure is awesome, but this is a semi-serious point that we were talking about earlier, which is like, I'm living in a post-Clojure world. I don't ever type CLJ these days because I'm only using like Babashka. But then, what is Babashka? It's just a little, a wrapper around Psi, which is the real cool thing, right? And I know, like, Ray, you've used a lot of the Skittle and all of that stuff, right? So
I've used BB, NBB, Skittle. I'm
more promiscuous.
I'm very promiscuous,
etc.
And less cultured than you are, I'm afraid. I'm more tolerant. I don't know, whatever you want to say. More promiscuous is probably better. Yeah, but I've used a lot of his tools, and I think it's really nice. I think it's always one of these strange things, though, that the tooling isn't always as simple as the JVM tooling. I think that's probably the big thing. But sometimes the tooling's easier, like NBB. Tooling for NBB is like almost zero compared to ClojureScript.
Yeah.
And the tooling for Skittle is almost zero.
It's actually zero.
It is actually zero, yeah.
Yeah.
Compared to anything else. You just drop a fucking like line in your HTML file. That's it. You're done. You're evaluating at that point, you know. So that is incredible. So, you know, I think for some of the tools it's kind of like not quite on par, but other tools are actually way ahead, you know. So you know, I of course I love this guy's stuff, you know, and Mikhail is awesome. So yay.
But I think that like Psy is finally delivering on the promise of, you know, Clojure rocks, JavaScript reaches, whatever. Because
right, yeah.
Like now I can run Clojure really anywhere, right? I don't need, you know, a JS interpreter. You know, I just need something that can run Psy, and Bob's my uncle, and so that's super cool.
Yeah, I think it's going to be really interesting what happens with like Squint and Cherry and stuff like this. They're obviously still works in progress, but a lot of people are getting pretty excited about it. You know, where it's a much closer integration to JavaScript than we've seen before. So I think that's it's a super interesting experiment he's doing.
Yeah, and this kind of goes back to, you know, when you asked me why in the world I used Babashka for the stuff I was doing for the whole, or why I did Lambda. A lot of the things that I think a lot of the things that we as programmers do are a lot less complicated than we want to make them. And something really appeals to me about kind of the Bork Dude suite of tools, because they really are, I think most of them really are simple in that they kind of do one thing, and that's what they're for. And then you can put them together. So it really feels like, oh, I'm Unixing over here. You know, so when I did like Lambda, it's like, okay, I have Babashka here, I have whatever, you know, this piece here, that piece, you know, like I have Babashka, I have Terraform, and I have like fucking Zip or whatever. Hurrah! You know, I'm combining these, and the same you get with, you know, now you have like Psy, and you have Skittle and Cherry and all of this stuff, and you know, there are a lot of things you can actually do just by dropping a tag in your HTML file, right? And that's good enough. You don't need to have some wild Clojure script, amazing advanced compilation,
pipeline,
blurgity blah. So I'm all for like use the, you know, the least effort necessary. Let's stop pretending everything has to be fucking enterprise, you know, web scale, whatever.
I think the thing about, and I kind of hit on it as well, is the thing I like about Clojure is like low ceremony, you know, and I think that's what you're hitting at as well. So
exactly.
it's like, it's low. If we can get low ceremony, then we're good. The more ceremony we've got, bad. Because, you know, that's sort of like, you can be simple and not easy. I don't like that. I don't like not easy.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
You know, that's sort of, you have to do somebody should do some work on the not easy bit. Because if you've got simple, then not easy should be easier.
Easy.
But that's kind of the thing, what you were talking about, when you know, you don't know Clojure and like, okay, yeah, sure, the syntax is easy and minimal, but then you stumble across component systems and arrow config files and so on. And like, you know, like those things are there for a reason. Like they're really good for what they do. But I think a lot of times we look at all of this stuff and we're like, okay, so we have to have all of this in every Clojure program we write. Like, you know, it doesn't matter. I'm copying a file from, you know, one path on the hard drive to another, but I have to have an arrow config file, and I have to use mount or integrant or whatever, and I have to, you know, fucking def, you know, protocols and multi-methods galore. So, you know, the thing I love about Babashka is like, you can a lot of times just, you know, cheat, like just not do any of that stuff and just copy the damn file, and like, you know, just using it without doing an actual like program thing. You know, it does these things like it imports a bunch of, or it requires a bunch of namespaces in for you, and you can do just the, you know, whatever JSON parse stream and all of that, and it just you know, that's what was so fucking fun about, Perl or JavaScript back in the day. It's like you just the stuff was there.
Just do stuff.
Just do stuff.
Yeah. It's back to basics, bit literally, isn't it?
Back to basics.
Put the cassette in and start typing the code. I never did that, but I can see the appeal of it. When people that did, and people that grew up like that, it's like, and anything where you've got a repo, where you've got feedback, where you can just do things just quickly. These are to me, by the way, and again, if we're talking about welcoming people, these are the kind of use cases we should be talking about. Yeah, sure. It can scale up to the sort of, the big banks. It's owned by $1 billion banks, so it can run $1 billion banks. It's proven. It's a proven use case. So don't sweat that one, guys. It's bank scale. Okay,
exactly.
It's there. We'll get to that story in a minute. But you want to do, you want to do something simple. Boom, 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 boom. Here's 10 use cases of something super simple. That will literally be nice for your life, and it will take you 10 seconds.
Well,
that's where the welcoming pack should be,
Yeah, and that's why PHP is super awesome, right? Like,
yeah.
Whatever you want to say about it, in terms of like the user experience from like getting something done, you upload the script to your server and like it's done.
It's done.
Yeah. I think we have to revisit this idea of like. Doing things quick is actually fine,
Yeah. Well, it's like, what's the old thing that everybody says but nobody does, right? Like, make it work, make it good, make it fast, and don't do any of those things until they're necessary. So
exactly, yeah. I mean, in a way, I think we are getting there, because given the iterations on the frameworks, iterations on things, and we, I mean, there is a reason why Babashka and all the related family of programs are way more popular, and those are giving people more joy. And then, oh wait, we had this one, and then something happened in between, and then now we are going back to basics. And I think it is happening, but I think it would be nice if it is more. It's not just a branch in the community, rather than it's like adopted by the mainstream, saying that, okay, this is a blessed thing, this is what you can experience Clojure with, or something like that. And that'll be super nice, I think.
I'm very happy that it's in the community personally. I think it goes a lot faster. There's a lot more contributors. I think it's a better model. I'm not bullshitting. I think the model that we've got at the moment for the main system is very conservative, and that is what it is. Fine, but that's not Borg Dude's attitude. He wants to have a more kind of vibrant, experimental approach to things, and I think there's definitely, a huge amount of room and love for that, I think.
Yeah, and I think that's like, if you want to talk about how do we build communities, look at how he rolls. He gets so much done, but he's still like, super friendly, super humble. He'll answer a question for the 6,000th time, without saying read the fucking manual or whatever. Like, he gets, when other people send him pull requests, he actually like looks at it and he's encouraging, even if he's never in a million years gonna merge my shitty pull request. Like he makes you feel like you're like a valued member. And like contrast that with how a lot of communities work, including like some aspects of our own Clojure community, right? Like we are, it kind of goes back to that air of superiority you're talking about. It's like, we know the right way to do things, and that's not it. And a lot of times that is even true, right? But just because I know the right way to do a thing and you haven't figured it out yet, that doesn't mean I should just dismiss you. That means I should say, oh, okay, cool, VJ. You could also do it this way. And here, here's what happens if you do it this way instead of that, But again,
I think that level of, I think, empathy and that level of safety needs to be there in the community from top to bottom, right? That is the reason. And the reason why I totally understand that this needs to be kind of a branch in the community that is much more vibrant and greener branch compared to the rest of the fucking tree, or what I worry about is that when all this quote unquote burden is put on one person or few members, then it is much more difficult to expand it, right? And I mean, compared to every other language community, I mean, compared to JavaScript, we are tiny. That means we need to be way more protective of these mindsets in the community, right? It's much more valuable to us to make sure that there is new people coming in and then being able to contribute, being able to learn new shit and have fun in the end. That's the whole idea. And so that is the reason why I was hoping for, this could be kind of the mainstream. This is the trunk, and there are some branches that are much more restricted. I'm fine with it. But if the trunk is much more restricted and it's just a branch, then it's like, okay, that's enough tree metaphors. But anyway,
I mean, to be honest, I think the way I look at it, and I think I saw a talk by. We're kind of like running a bit long now, by the way. So I'll sort of make this my last whinge of the night, okay? But I kind of like. I remember there was a talk, I think at the Clojure tray in 2019 by Richard Feltman. And he was talking about why aren't functional programming languages mainstream, and he was trying to look at well, it's basically because most programming languages are not mainstream actually. So why is that? Why are certain programming languages mainstream? And it's often because some big company like Oracle or Sun or Google or Microsoft has its back, puts a shitload of money into it, and essentially markets the shit out of it, puts community managers on it, puts a lot of money into documentation. Now, now I don't want to be ungrateful to our friends in Brazil, but they've bought this company. They're sitting on Clojure. They've got billions of dollars. Put a few million into it. I mean, I think there's a scope for that company, and they don't owe me anything. Okay, I get it. But just as an idea, if you're a multi-billion-dollar company that actually relies on this technology, you rely on it for your business, or you're getting rid of it silently. I don't know what's happening, but I'm assuming they're keeping it. A bit like Oracle with Java, they kind of had to put money into it because it's their business now. If they need it, and so I'm kind of surprised that either Rich is saying I don't want the money because fuck it, I'm just not interested, or he's like being denied the money, and I don't know what's going on. But
it seems
like there should be money, and even if there's not money for because at the end of the day, he wants to control the core programming stuff. That's fine. But why isn't there money for marketing, for documentation, for outreach, for that kind of stuff, or for for conferences, free conferences in Europe, free conferences in America? This is a rounding error on one of their departments in that bank. So I'm kind of I'm worried that either for some reason they're resistant to doing it, or there's a resistance to taking the money for some cultural reason where we haven't had the money in the past. So we always like to live in poverty. It's this kind of mentality, that the poor people have sometimes where they don't know how to behave when they've got money, So maybe it's like that, maybe it's a bit like that the culture is just an impoverished culture and it doesn't know how to deal with its wealth,
Yeah.
That's a real. It's a real. I don't know. I've just thought about that, so it could be really. It could be wildly off, but I just come up with this
exactly.
shit, sometimes. I've had a glass of wine. Forgive me,
I think. Hey, dude, it's one of those I'm writing this blog post. Don't like it? Go and start your own blog.
Exactly. You come to this podcast for this content, not for these bloody guests. Sorry, Josh. I'm going to give you the last word, mate. I've done my whinging for the night, so please whinge or praise or whatever you want to do.
Yes.
Any last words for the episode?
Yeah. Well, here's my last word, since we've talked a lot about community. I don't know if Clojure will ever become mainstream. I don't think so. But the greatest thing about Clojure for me is just the people that I've met in the community.
Yeah.
I mean, that's what's I mean, I like the language, but I never would have stuck with it if I hadn't, met these people who were, passionate, nice, friendly,
smart,
helpful. And like I absolutely love going to Clojure conferences, even though I don't, write Clojure anymore. And they like you meet. I love the European scene. You meet some of the people you always see around, but then you meet new people, and so at least we're getting enough like new people in that it's not the same old group of whatever middle-aged men or whatever the fuck, just moaning about how it used to be good back in the old days when you could concatenate tape drives to terminals or something. So teletypes.
Yeah.
So like the community stuff, it could be better, but also I think we do have a pretty great community in many ways, especially here in Europe.
Yeah. I think it feels small enough and to be still, know everybody a little bit, and feel comfortable saying what you have in your mind, right? That is the nice part, and way. I mean, one of the things for me, it's been, I've been, as I was mentioning, like I've been in the community one way or the other since the Blogspot days when Rich used to blog about Clojure, and I mean there is so much of intelligence, there is so much of experience in the community that I just keep. I mean, I used to idle on IRC, now I'm idling on Clojurians basically. And every now and then, posting my dog photo, that's what I do, that's my contribution. But otherwise, I just read the stuff and they're like, wow, this is fucking amazing, and then there is something new comes up all the time. And there are still people like, for example, Cycloge, Daniel Suski doing amazing work to keep the ball rolling, to keep there is a rhythm and focusing on different areas, and which is really admirable. That is something that I love, and that there is a lot of love, and all the. It's like, my mother used to say, I'm slapping you because I love you, because I want you to be better.
That's right.
So that's the kind of thing. Like, it's like a harsh medicine, and since we are so much invested, and since we much, even dare I say, love the community and love the language so much, and that's where all these frustrations pop up as well every time we see something. And it's not a dig at, well, this is a shitty language, I could have just wrapped up and then went to something else. But that's not the thing, right? We want to be better, we want to help people, we want to enjoy writing code. That's the whole idea. So I think that's, for that part, I think we're doing great. So I think that's pretty much it. So
well, I think at the end of the day, you want to share the love, don't you? That's
exactly.
That's my feeling. Maybe maybe it sometimes comes across like I'm sharing the hate, but my
what we really mean is
no, but it's it's sugarcoating, but no, really, I know, like you say, with great people, and it's a great language, and we just we just want to have more people to have the joy of this thing, really.
And for the people who probably read or saw the movie, the horse, the mole, the boy thingy, I'm not sure if you've seen it. It's a great, really amazing Oscar animation, but a book, the small children's book. It's not a children's book, it's really a lovely thing. And the mole is like, okay, everybody says, oh, I love you, that's why I'm here. And then the mole cannot say that, and he says, I'm glad we're all here. That's pretty much you can go to. So so we have our own way of expressing our love towards each other, which is really nice. Anyway, I'm glad we're all here. So
I'm glad we're here.
On that happy note, thanks a lot, Josh. I mean, thanks for joining, and I hope you're gonna do less and less Clojure, and then tell the stories of Clojure to bring it to more people, and make it faster, and spread the node hate.
Definitely.
It's a full-time job now for him.
Well, thanks for having me. Thanks a lot. It's been fun.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Defan. And the awesome vegetarian music, or the track, is Melon Hamburger by Pizzeri. And the show's audio is mixed by Wouter Dullert. I'm pretty sure I butchered his name. Maybe you should insert your own name here, Dullert.
Wouter,
If you'd like to support us, please do check out our Patreon page, and you can show your appreciation to all the hard work or the lack of hard work that we're doing. And you can also catch up with either Ray, with me, for some unexplainable reason. You want to interact with us, then do check us out on Slack, Clojurian Slack or Clojureverse, or on Zulip, or just at us at Defen Podcast on Twitter. Enjoy your day and see you in the next episode.
We could just sit here for rambling on for like 2 or 3 hours anyway.